Sam Whitaker didn't move to Cedar Ridge to fight a war, he came for peace. The sun stretched lazily across the sprawling Texas sky as Sam stood at the edge of his ranch. Boots buried in the soft dirt, his hand resting on the wooden gate. He had built with his own hands. The land had once belonged to his grandfather, quiet, stubborn man who passed down the belief that land was sacred. And freedom wasn't a gift, but something you stood guard over. For 6 months, peace held. Toadies yipped in the distance. Chickens clucked lazily. His horse, Daisy, grazed without a care. Then the letter came. A bland white envelope. No stamp. Just tucked into the iron mailbox at the end of his dirt road. The return address read, Cedar Ridge Community Management Board inside. A crisp, printed letter filled with bureaucratic venom. Dear Mr. Whitaker, you are now under the jurisdiction of the Cedar Ridge Homeowners Association. Monthly dues of $421.39 are to be submitted effective immediately. Your property has been flagged for nonconformity and will undergo inspection within 14 business days. Sam stared at it, frowning. HOA, he muttered. This land ain't. Even in the community. He flipped the page, reading further. As per Article 17A of the Revised Community Boundaries Act, your parcel now falls under our authority. Revised. When? How? Sam crumpled the letter and tossed it on the table. That night, he poured himself a glass of whiskey, opened the deed to his land, and read it line by line. His parcel had always been zoned agricultural. It was beyond Cedar Ridge's limits by at least 3 miles. No HOA, no city code. Just Sam, his animals, and the soil. The next morning, the first car arrived. Black Escalade, tinted windows. 3 men stepped out matching polos, clipboards in hand. They didn't walk up the driveway. They marched. Morning, Sam said, standing on his porch, arms crossed. One of them slicked back hair, mirrored sunglasses flashed a fake smile. Sam Whitaker? Yes? We're here from Cedar Ridge Management. You've probably received our welcome letter. I ain't part of your little club, Sam said. This ranch ain't under your HOA. The man chuckled. Actually, it is. Boundaries were redrawn. It's all legal. You should really check the county registrar's site. Sam didn't budge. You're trespassing. Sunglasses guy raised an eyebrow. We're authorized inspectors. Refusal to comply could result in legal consequences. It's just trying to keep things friendly. He handed Sam a folder. Inside, photos of his barn, his fence, even his porch taken without permission. The man leaned in. Sooner you comply, the easier this'll be. Sam's voice dropped. You've got 10 seconds to get off my land. The 3 men retreated. Calmly, too calmly. One of them paused at the gate and muttered into a radio, contact made. Stubborn type phase 1 complete. That night, Sam didn't sleep. He watched the gate from his porch, rifle across his lap. The next morning, a new sign was hammered into the ground near the edge of his property. Community property, Cedar Ridge access approved. He tore it down. But it was back the next morning, and the morning after that. But the worst came on the 3rd day. Sam opened his laptop and checked the county land office. There it was, an updated map. His ranch, ... now shaded blue. Annexed. Legally filed, public record. Cedar Ridge HOA. Only one problem. The signature authorizing the annexation was his. Except Sam never signed it. He zoomed in. Sure enough, his name in perfect cursive. Dated 2 months ago. A forged signature. A digital lie. Sam leaned back in his chair, heart pounding. This wasn't a paperwork mistake. This was premeditated theft, corporate sabotage disguised as regulation. His phone buzzed. Unknown number. He let it go to voicemail. 30 seconds later, a message played. Mr. Whitaker, this is your final courtesy call. We urge you to comply with HOA transition protocols. Otherwise, enforcement actions will escalate. Sam stood slowly, eyes cold. They wanted a war. They just picked the wrong rancher. The air felt heavier that morning. Sam stood by his gate, eyeing. The fresh community property sign hammered into his soil like a flag planted by invaders. He tore it out again and tossed it into his burn barrel. The metal hissed and blackened in the flame like a cursed relic. Daisy, his mare, pawed the ground nervously nearby. Even she knew something was off. Inside the ranch house, Sam's kitchen. Table had become a war desk. Folded land deeds, a county zoning map, a half-empty pot of coffee. His grandfather's dusty Smith & Wesson sat quietly near the edge. Sam's niece Riley arrived just after sunrise. 28, sharp as a whip, and currently a paralegal for a Houston firm. She didn't waste time with pleasantries. They filed it all 2 months ago, she said, opening her laptop. There's an emergency annexation clause in? The Cedar Ridge HOA charters some nonsense about protecting community borders. Sam leaned over her shoulder. That clause wouldn't apply to me. I'm not in the HOA. She nodded grimly. Exactly. But get this, your name is on the signature line, and the notary public who supposedly witnessed it. She's been dead. Since 2021, Sam's jaw clenched. So it's forged. Yep, sloppy too. Looks like they didn't expect you to dig this deep. As they talked, a truck rumbled down the dirt road. A beat-up Ford American flag sticker peeling on the bumper. The driver stepped out bald, sunburned, with an old surveyor's case slung over his shoulder. Name's Dale, the man said, shaking Sam's hand. Used to work the ridge before they got corporate. Heard what they're doing? Figured you could use a map. He opened a faded blueprint on the hood of his truck. This here's the original township boundary, 1969. Now this, he pulled out a newer overlay. This is what they filed last month. See how the lines move? They drew a hook, like a fishing lure, around your ranch, added it quietly into their parcel count. Sam studied the curve. This wasn't about rules, he muttered. This was about land. Dale nodded. Probably. Want to resell and develop it? You've got flat terrain, water access, and no neighbors for half a mile. Prime real estate. Sam's fists tightened. I ain't sellin'. I don't care what papers they print. Later that day, as the sun dipped low, Sam drove into town to visit the county clerk's office. It was nearly empty. He approached the front desk and laid out his deeds and Riley's research. The clerk, a woman in her 60s, squinted at the documents. Mr. Whitaker, you got a real mess on your hands. I've seen 3 other complaints like this in the last month. Folks pushed out of their land by redrawn lines and HOA board votes. But nobody had proof like this. She leaned closer. A word. The HOA has a private arrangement with someone on the zoning committee. I'd watch your back. As Sam walked back to his truck, he noticed a car parked 2 spaces over. Same black Escalade from before. Dot inside. Mirrored sunglasses. Dot watching. Sam didn't blink. He got in his truck, turned the key, and drove straight home. That night, the fences were cut. 4 of them, barbed wire snipped clean. One of his goats was missing. His motion sensor caught blurry footage of a person in a gray hoodie walking the perimeter with what looked like measuring tools. And on his barn, spray painted in red. Section 14B, non-compliant. Structures subject to removal. Sam stared at the message, fury burning hot in his chest. HOA code. On his barn. They were escalating fast, but they didn't know the man they were dealing with as he lit another fire in the barrel and watched that sign melt into smoke. He picked up his phone and made a call. Yeah, he said, it's starting. I'm gonna need you here. Bring the drone footage. And bring the boys. Dawn broke sharp and blood orange over the ridge. The air was still. Too still. Sam Whitaker didn't sleep much that night. The footage of the shadowy figure creeping across his land had looped in his mind like a rattler circling his boots. Someone was testing boundaries. Not legal ones, real ones. Barbed wire, steel, and willpower. But today, Sam had something the HOA didn't expect. Reinforcements just before sunrise. 2 trucks pulled onto the property. The first carried Leo Granger, ex-military, now a drone specialist. He wore wraparound shades and had a satchel full of gear. The second truck was heavier, carrying Clint and Dale Jr., 2 roughneck cousins with more firearms than formal education. Riley stepped outside with a mug of coffee. "It looks like the start of a militia." Sam grinned. "No, this is the start of a truth operation." Leo wasted no time. Within the hour, his drone was buzzing 200 feet above the ranch, capturing wide-angle video of the land and fence line. It wasn't long before he spotted them. 2 men in black polos walking the western edge of the property just inside the tree line. "They think they're slick," Leo said, adjusting his tablet. No marked vehicle nearby. "But there, mapping something, look laser rangefinder." Sam nodded grimly. "They're trying to measure for seizure." "Trying," Dale Jr. muttered, cocking his shotgun being the key word. But Sam raised a hand. "Not yet. We do this my way. We build a case, not a mess." That same morning, another envelope arrived, taped to his gate. No stamp. Just another poison pen from Cedar Ridge HOA. "You are in violation of code. 22D, unauthorized defensive barriers. Remove all barbed wire and surveillance systems. Within 48 hours, failure to comply will result in fines and enforcement." Riley read it and laughed. "They're warning you for defending your own land. That's rich." But Sam wasn't laughing. "They're laying groundwork. When we push back, they'll call it aggression." Inside, he booted up the footage. Leo had gathered. There they were, clear as daylight, 2 men with clipboards, rangefinders, and a small orange stake. They drove into the dirt. Coordinates popped up on screen. Sam froze. That stake was 15 feet inside his actual boundary. "They're trying to shift the lines again," Sam said, "piece by piece." Riley's voice dropped. "This isn't just a takeover. This is entrapment. They're baiting you, too. Lash out so they can go legal." At noon, things escalated. The power cut out. Sam checked the breaker. Nothing tripped. He followed the line out to the main pole. It had been cleanly severed. Not by weather, by bolt cutters. A plastic HOA tag. Hung from the snapped cable, unapproved electrical hookup service suspended until review. Sam turned slowly to the others. "That's it." He grabbed the land deed, Riley's research, Leo's drone footage, and tossed it all into a manila envelope. "Where are you going?" Riley asked. "Downtown," Sam said. "Time to talk." To a judge, he paused. "And when I come back, if they set foot on this property, Agani won't be answering with paperwork." As Sam's truck kicked up dust down the road, Clint muttered, "What do we do in the meantime?" Riley looked toward the west fence line where the black polo men had disappeared. "We hold the line." She said back inside, the barn was quiet, too quiet. A small red light blinked in the hayloft, undetected. A signal beacon. Broadcasting coordinates, and 3 miles away, in a slick HOA boardroom, a woman in a blazer leaned over a digital map and smiled. Targets escalating. Time for phase 3. It wasn't the wind that moved in the rafters. Dale Jr. was feeding the horses when he noticed the blinking light, tucked high in the hayloft. Small, pulsing, alien. He didn't panic. He didn't call out. He walked back out to the porch like nothing happened, where Leo was flying the drone and Riley was on a call with the zoning office. Then, in a low voice, "We've got a problem in the barn." Leo's head snapped up. Motion. Sensor. Worse. Dale Jr. muttered. Device. Blinking. Hidden. Leo stood up so fast he nearly knocked over his laptop. "Show me." They entered the barn cautiously. Daisy neighed once, as if warning them. Leo scanned the rafters with a handheld RF detector. The beeps accelerated. There it was, a plastic casing tucked in the shadows, no bigger than a deck of cards. Inside, GPS, camera, audio mic, and a transmitter. Leo swore under his breath. This isn't some backyard spy toy. This is tactical. Surveillance, broadcast grade, real-time location, audio and video. Riley's voice dropped. You think they've been listening this whole time? I know they have, Leo replied. This thing's been running on a long-life lithium cell. It's probably installed during the first trespass, maybe when they left that red paint on the barn. Dale Jr. frowned. So they've been watching us for days. Riley turned pale. Everything we've said, all of Sam's plans, we've been feeding it straight to their command center. Leo yanked it down carefully and carried it outside in a metal box. We kill the signal, they'll know we found it, so we'll do better. He grinned. We'll feed them the wrong story. Back inside, Leo set up a spoof broadcast. Loop of staged audio. Sam ranting about leaving town, fencing off the property, and moving livestock to another location. All fake, all pre-recorded. Let them act on false intel, Leo said. Let's see how fast they move when they think the ranch is abandoned. Meanwhile, Sam was facing his own battle in the downtown courthouse. He stood before Judge Meredith Klein, a no-nonsense woman with gray eyes and a sharper tongue. Across from him was an HOA attorney with slick hair and an oily grin. Sam dropped the manila envelope on the desk. Your Honor, I'm presenting a sworn affidavit of land ownership, proof of unauthorized annexation, falsified signatures, drone, surveillance evidence, and a notarized copy of the original township boundary. This is not a zoning error, it's targeted fraud. The judge flipped through the documents. Her eyes narrowed at the drone photos, especially the one showing the two men placing orange markers inside his legal boundary. The HOA lawyer cleared his throat. Your Honor, Mr. Whitaker's accusations are emotional. The boundary revision was filed under Emergency Protective Policy 14C for rapid suburban expansion. The HOA is legally permitted. Spare me the policy vomit, Judge Klein snapped. Why is there a dead notary's name on your annexation form? Silence. And why? She continued. Is there a recording of two HOA inspectors cutting through his fence and tagging a barn that falls outside your filed map? More silence. The judge leaned forward. I'm issuing an emergency injunction. Effective immediately, the Cedar Ridge HOA is to cease all enforcement actions on Mr. Whitaker's property. Any further intrusion will be considered criminal trespass. Sam didn't smile. He just nodded as he stepped outside the courthouse. The clouds broke overhead. Light poured through like a silent approval from above, but the war wasn't over. As he drove back to the ranch, Riley's message came through. We found the spy tech. We're feeding them false data. Be ready if they take the bait, they'll come hard and fast. Back at HOA headquarters, a red light blinked on the wall map. The ranch was tagged as vacant, vulnerable. A younger board member hesitated. Ma'am, this seems risky. But the woman in the blazer, HOA President Lorraine March, didn't blink. Launch Phase 4. The sun dipped below the tree line, smearing the sky with streaks of burnt gold and violet. But on the ranch, the shadows grew heavier than usual. Sam was back. Meant nothing in the dark. Tonight wasn't legal. Tonight was war, the fake audio. Leo had looped from the barn device had run all day, Sam pretending to pack up. The livestock being relocated, talk of turning the lights off and heading out. For the week, a perfect setup. And sure enough, the first trespassers came just after 9 p.m. Leo caught them on infrared 3 silhouettes, moving low through the west pasture. No logos, no badges, but these weren't government. No sheriff's department. Sent men sneaking through fence lines at night. These were hired. Riley watched the thermal feed in horror. They're moving in tight formation, professional. That's not a board patrol. That's a strike crew. Land reclamation unit, Leo muttered. Private contractor, most likely ex-mercs. Sam stood up. Then they've crossed the final line. He keyed his radio. Clint Dale, positions. Quiet mode. The cousins took their posts Clint behind. The hay trailer near the east barn. Dale Jr. in the tree line with a high-powered scope and beanbag rounds. They were under orders, no lethal shots unless fired upon. But they were ready. The infiltrators reached the barn just before 9:30. They spread out to wedge open the double doors. That was the moment Sam stepped out from the shadows. Flashlight beaming directly into their eyes, judge's injunction in hand. "This is private property," Sam shouted. "Court protected. You are committing armed trespass." The man holding the crowbar hesitated. His radio crackled, but behind him, Leo's drone buzzed overhead like a hornet's floodlight, activating and bathing the barnyard in pure white. The infiltrators flinched. Dale Jr. fired a warning round into the dirt just 2 feet from the lead man's boots. The sound cracked like thunder. The men froze. Sam advanced. "Drop the gear. Hands up." One man lowered his head. "We were told the property was abandoned." "By who?" Sam demanded. No answer. Behind them, flashing lights, blue and red, spilled over the ridge. Riley had called in a favor. The county sheriff, who had once hunted with Sam's late father, arrived in full force. Deputies poured in like a tide. "Stand down," the sheriff barked. The intruders were quickly cuffed and escorted out, silent, tight-lipped. One of them wore a vest with the faint imprint of a company patch. Riley snapped a photo before it was covered. "Leviathan Security Solutions." Leo raised his brow. "That's a blacklisted firm. They've done pipeline clearing and offshore seizure work. If Lorraine March is using them, she's not just trying to find me," Sam muttered, "just trying to erase me." Later that night, once things calmed and the sheriff filed the last of the reports, Riley walked into the barn carrying the laptop. "You need to see this." She played the drone footage from above the men approaching, the fake broadcast from the bug device, the exact moment the HOA took the bait. Sam watched it all. Then he leaned forward, eyes burning with resolve. "This footage, the documents, the hired muscle, the forgery. It's evidence. And with this," he held up the injunction and tapped the USB drive. "We don't just stop them. We destroy their whole operation." The Cedar Ridge HOA boardroom smelled like polished wood, stale coffee, and smug authority. That night, the 7-member board had gathered under flickering fluorescent lights, giddy with reports of a successful sweep. Lorraine March sat at the head of the long walnut table, tapping her manicured nails against a printed agenda. "Phase 4 is complete. By Monday, we file for emergency control under Municipal Annex Code." The room nodded in agreement. No one questioned her. Then the lights went out, total black. A few startled gasps, the sound of a chair scraping back. Someone fumbled for the emergency switch clack. The lights flickered back on, weaker now. And in the doorway stood Sam Whitaker, flanked by Riley, Leo, and Sheriff Garza. Sam wore his worn ranch coat and a grim look that could have stopped a stampede. In one hand, a document folder. In the other, a small projector. Lorraine stood. "This is a private meeting. You have no authority." Sheriff Garza held up a writ of enforcement stamped by Judge Klein. "On the contrary," he said, "Mr. Whitaker is here under court authority. Any resistance to this action will be considered obstruction of justice." Sam didn't wait. Walls lit up with drone footage, trespassers creeping over Sam's fence, installing surveillance devices, cutting power lines, placing fake property stakes. Clear. INARGUABL. Next came the audio recorded from Leo's planted device. Loren's own voice instructing Leviathan contractors to clear out the ranch. Property by force if necessary. A chilling silence fell. Board member Davis swallowed hard. "Lorraine, you said this was all legal." Lorraine's voice cracked. "This is a stunt. This isn't admissible." Sam cut her off. "That footage is backed by a signed injunction, verified land deed, a death-signed notary fraud report, and records of HOA funds paid to a banned security contractor. You didn't just break HOA rules, you broke federal law." Sheriff Garza opened another envelope. "We have authorization to seize all board communications and financials for immediate forensic audit." If there's anything you'd like to confess, now's the time. One of the board members stood up, pale as paper. I didn't know she hired contractors. I thought it was just about cleaning up the zoning map. Another followed. I voted yes, because she said Whitaker was squatting on unclaimed land. Sam stepped closer to the table. You tried to erase my family's history, our land, and our lives. But you did it under the assumption I was alone. He leaned forward. You were wrong. Loren's hand trembled as she reached for her phone. Riley caught the motion and held up a printed screenshot of a text. Lorraine messaging Leviathan's field lead 2 days ago. Make it look abandoned. The fewer questions, the better. Lorraine slumped in her chair, eyes dull. Outside, county vehicles pulled in, headlights blazing across the boardroom windows. Deputy marshals filed in with boxes and clipboard checklists, one by one. The board members were escorted out for statements. Lorraine was last. As she passed Sam, she paused. Sam didn't blink. No. But it starts with you. She was led away. Inside, Sam stood alone in the boardroom, watching the footage replay on loop. One fight was over. But somewhere deeper in the HOA web, darker forces were watching Dan. Regrouping. 3 days after the boardroom collapse, Cedar Ridge was quieter than it had been in years. No patrol SUVs roamed the streets. No HOA drones buzzed overhead. Lorraine March's face had vanished from every newsletter, website, and community bulletin. Bored. The neighborhood felt like it was holding its breath. But Sam knew better. This wasn't peace. It was the eye of the storm. Riley slammed a folder onto the ranch's kitchen table. She wasn't acting alone. She was just a node, a mouthpiece. Sam opened the folder. Inside, emails, payment receipts, land transfer proposals, all leaked by one of the board members who had cracked under pressure at the center of it all. County Commissioner Brent Howick. Leo whistled low. That's a name I haven't heard in a while. Used to be a developer before he got into politics. Half this region's zoning ordinances got rewritten under his watch. Riley tapped a satellite map. Howick approved a private project 3 months ago, a smart industrial corridor, stretching from the highway bypass all the way to, she paused. Your ranch, Sam, right to your property line. Sam frowned. They wanted to use my land to anchor the project. Riley nodded grimly. Loren's stunt was meant to clear your property and turn it over under an emergency use ordinance. If the HOA had succeeded, Howick would have greenlit the sale within hours. Leo turned his laptop. And here's the kicker. Howick's brother runs the construction firm slated to develop the corridor. Millions in kickbacks. The ranch wasn't just in the way, it was essential. Sam leaned back, the weight of it sinking in. This wasn't personal greed. This was systemic theft, hidden behind paper and policy. But they weren't done yet. Later that evening, they met with Judge Klein in her private chambers. She'd requested discretion, no press, no aides, no recorders. Just them, her, and a growing list of criminal conspiracies. She listened in silence as Sam laid it all out. Loren's collapse, the evidence, Howick's approval trail. The developers, and the payoffs. Riley even brought a sworn statement from the HOA's treasurer, confirming funds were funneled directly into a county-controlled beautification fund that didn't exist. Judge Klein sighed. What you're saying is true. This isn't just civil fraud. It's racketeering, conspiracy. Possibly even land laundering. Leo chuckled darkly. Didn't know that was a real term? It is now, the judge muttered. She stood. Moving to her window, I can issue another injunction to freeze the land project. But going after Howick requires political teeth. The sheriff won't move without hard public pressure. You need to force his hand. Sam's jaw set like iron. Then we go public. By the next day, they had a plan. Leo and Riley launched Land Backed by Lies, a video series featuring the surveillance footage. boardroom showdown, and newly uncovered corruption. The first clip exploded online. Overnight, tens of thousands of views turned into hundreds of thousands. Local news stations picked it up by noon. Reporters were camped outside the county commissioner's office. By 4 p.m., Brent Howick issued a bland denial. These allegations are politically motivated and lack context. But by 8 p.m., Sam dropped the hammer. He uploaded the voicemail Howick left for Lorraine. Make sure the ranch is off the books before the end of the month. I don't care how. I've got contractors breathing down my neck and buyers lined up. Get it done. The internet erupted. Within hours, Howick's office was raided. The headlines hit. Commissioner under investigation in HOA land grab conspiracy, local rancher exposes. Multi-million-dollar fraud network. But Sam wasn't celebrating yet. He stood outside the courthouse, watching the building burn with flashbulbs and news crews. Riley approached. You did it. You exposed them. Sam shook his head. No, I just dug up the roots. The whole tree still standing. It was dawn when the dust trails appeared on the road leading to Sam Whitaker's ranch. But this time, it weren't HOA, patrols, or hired thugs. They were trucks, jeeps, horses, ATVs. His allies were arriving. The same neighbors who once ignored his warnings. The same ranchers who thought he'd lost the fight. Even former HOA members, shamed but repentant, were pulling onto his land with fire in their eyes. They weren't just here to help. They were here to make sure it never happened again. Sam stood at the top of the hill wearing the same hat his father used to wear during cattle runs. Riley stood beside him, drone controller in hand. Leo set up the portable screen, already compiling the final video, the day the land fought back. Below them, in the valley, news vans had gathered for the biggest moment of the entire battle. Judge Klein's federal injunction, backed now by state audit findings. A criminal probe into Commissioner Howick, and a full confession from the Leviathan contractor had one final piece to play. Its permanent restraining order against the Cedar Ridge HOA and an order for asset seizure. At precisely 10 a.m., the unmarked black SUVs pulled up to the former HOA headquarters. U.S. Marshals stepped out, no press statement. No warning. Just badges and boxes. Lorraine March, released on bail just days prior, watched from her porch across the street. Frozen as her empire crumbled, the marshals weren't just shutting down the HOA office. They were seizing everything. Files, ledgers, electronic records, and every document tied to the fraudulent land acquisition scheme. Sam didn't speak. He didn't need to. The image said it all. A man who'd been told he didn't belong standing on his family's land, arms crossed, watching the system that tried to crush him collapse under its own lies. Later that afternoon, Judge Klein herself arrived on the ranch. This land, she said, her voice steady as wind over wheat. It's been confirmed by county, deed, historic claim, and federal registry to be the sole and rightful property of Samuel Whitaker. The small crowd broke into cheers. Sam accepted the signed ruling. Not with a grin, but a quiet nod. It wasn't just victory, it was justice. But it wasn't over. Inside the barn, Riley opened her laptop. She pulled up the real bombshell, a leaked development proposal found. In Howick's cloud archive. It listed 11 other neighborhoods in surrounding counties, all flagged for quiet reclamation. Every one of them with an HOA. Every one of them tied to shell companies, manipulated land records, and black ops contractors. They were going to scale this, Riley said quietly. What they did to you, it was just the prototype. Sam didn't hesitate. We warned the others. And so they did. The video they published next wasn't just a documentary. It was a call to arms. Titled HOA Corruption Exposed. How one rancher stopped a national land theft ring. It hit 1 million views in 48 hours. Journalists, politicians, and watchdog groups started digging into local HOAs everywhere. Federal hearings were scheduled. A class action lawsuit formed across 4 states. The ranch was saved, but more than that, a fire had been lit across the Emochio. A fire had been lit across the Emochio. And what clash dog groups started digging into local? And what saw a word by sit-ins as we start at work at words of work? As we send up by sitio sintiquasing with a clisetto flash so was sued. With sen with slack. A clash with thick wide it was since we see. With thaw we with the way at why, at which at we see eve why do we so we to re why do we you psycho we see we to see we get with you to we side is story with you tea can you say that we could I cup if you will like to do to go I could kick it kill with you guys the could will I our start Country. Sam returned to work that week, rebuilding his fences, replanting the fields that had been trampled during the ordeal. But every now and then, someone new would stop by the ranch. Not reporters. Not deputies. Just people. People like him fighting back. And every time, Stam would invite them in, pour them coffee, and hand them a simple folder labeled, "Know your rights and how to use them." Okay. Because the war was never about land. It was about power. And Sam had just taught them all how to take it back.